Hi, I'm Louise Tribe with the Charlotte New Home Link. We are here today at Superior School of Real Estate to learn more about the Charlotte area new home construction. My special speaker is Chuck Graham of Newton Home Consultants.
I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about Charlotte's new home industry. And I guess the bad times have passed long enough that we can call it the recent unpleasantness, which is the way we refer to the previous obnoxious Civil War. But it was not been very much fun for any of us here in Charlotte, or really for that matter, in the United States with the mess we've been through. And I guess what I would say is that I'm going to show some data about Charlotte starting in '06, which was kind of the peak of the market, take us through the unpleasantness down through 2011, which was probably the worst year, depending upon how you measure it. And then, 2012, you had to look very, very close to see some improvement. But 2013 was noticeably better. And I've got some pretty Kool-Aid projections for 2014, which some economists said was real. So, I'm Mr. Negative, so it's probably not going to be that good. But some really positive stuff to talk to you about today. So without further ado, let's kind of look at the general Charlotte economy to kind of start with here. And I want to review some kind of general economic notes that you would think about with regards to any marketplace, kind of what's happened to Charlotte historically, where we are, and maybe what Moody's is projecting for us for 2014 and beyond. The first one is gross metro product. Same thing as gross national product, only this is just looking at Charlotte's economy. And you'll see that 2008 was the previous peak at about 83.1 billions of dollars. And so if you think about the Charlotte home building industry, the unpleasantness was late coming here, if you remember. And of course, we thought that's not going to happen. Hey, we're the banking capital of the world. Why would that be a problem? Well, as it turned out, banking was the problem. And so all the unpleasantness eventually came here. But what was interesting about it, all the national builders had seen it happen earlier in other markets. So they were ready to turn the switch off as soon as it happened here. So we didn't end up with these huge inventory overlays, and we also didn't have the same price depreciation at other markets. So we were a little bit protected, not as much as we would hoped we were going to be protected, but because of that, it was a little bit better for us. The 2014 projection is about 94.5, and that's 3.3% greater than 2013. And if you think about all the national GDP numbers, we're trying to scratch our way out of 2%. So clearly Charlotte is at a higher range as far as projections with regards to its gross metro product, which is good for us. The next one is total employment. Again, that peaked in 2008 at about 858,000. We finally surpassed it in 2013. What that means is 9, 10, 11, 12, took us 5 years to restore our previous peak in employment. And of course, employment is really what drives our industries, both the existing home and the new home marketplace. You often hear population projections, which I'm going to show in a little bit, but population don't buy houses. Households buy houses, and you need employment to convert population to a household. So employment's very critical to our industry. 2014 projection is about 890,000, which would be 2.3% greater than 2013. And again, that's about twice the national projection. So Charlotte's standing good from that perspective. Employment rate, the previous peak was 2010, and of course, peak of unemployment is a bad thing rather than the other ones which were good things. 2013, was 8.7%, dropping. The projection for 2014 is 8%. As you might imagine, unemployment statistics are very difficult to kind of understand what they're about. I think we all know the real issue is the participation rate. And so our unemployment rate's been dropping, but much of it has to be with people dropping out of the market, which is not very good. We're running at about 6.5% nationally, so 8% sounds fairly obnoxious for Charlotte. But what I would say is the difficulty here is most people who do not have a job realize Charlotte is a place to look. And so we have a lot of people moving to Charlotte without a job, looking for a job. And I believe that's one of the reasons our unemployment rate is as high as it is, because we have a lot of people who came to town without a job who are indeed searching. They have not dropped out. They are not hurting our participation rate. They are still searching. So 8% is not wonderful, but I think there's some reason why ours is surpassing the national numbers. Personal income growth, 2010 was the previous peak, increased about 9.4%. 2013 was 4.2%, and Moody's is projecting a 7.5% increase in 2014. I think that's a little bit of Kool-Aid, but you go tell your brokers and tell your builders that your commission rate should increase 7.4% and see if that plays. It's worth a try, okay? And then we have population growth projected at 2.2% in 2014 to about 1.9 million for the MSA. That's really moving Charlotte up in its size and scale. Forbes ranks Charlotte 7th most dynamic market in the United States right now. That's pretty hot and furious to have that showing up for us. So if we were going to be in the real estate business, in the residential real estate business, and we were going to pick a town to be in, Charlotte would certainly be high up on your list, because that just shows how smart we all are that we're living in Charlotte, right? Okay. Good stuff there. Single-family permits, 2006 was the previous peak, a little more than 20,000. The 2013 projection was 9,950, and this PROCES data was done in November, so they didn't have the actual numbers. That was really about the number of single-family permits we produced, about half the previous peak. And here is the real piece of Kool-Aid, is that Moody's is suggesting in 2014 we'll go to 15,000 single-family permits, a 50% increase. So I don't have a problem critiquing that. Get your cup of Kool-Aid out. That's kind of how I feel about that. But interesting, Mr. Crow, who is the chief economist with the National Association of Home Builders, is projecting a 33% increase nationally. So if the nation's at 33%, that certainly suggests Charlotte's going to be higher than the 33%. I hope I'm wrong. Wouldn't it be wonderful if that happened? I don't think it's possible. There may be a demand for it. I don't think there's supply for that to happen for us. And next one is average existing home price in 2007, which was the previous peak, was 156,000, surpassed in 2013 to 173. So that's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 6 years to bring the previous peak of existing homes back up to where they were. And we also know Charlotte was not as violent in those issues as places like Phoenix. So an incredible unpleasantness that we've all been through on that side of the equation. So those are some kind of general economic looks at Charlotte versus the nation, what the 2014 projections may or may not be, depending upon how Chuck feels about it and how the real world plays out for us, okay? The summary of Moody's report is here. The Charlotte-Gastonia-Rock Hill recovery will outpace that of the U.S. next year as the large service sector. Of course, we often hear the service sector of people flipping hamburgers, but the service sector also importantly includes financial professional business services, which are very high income issues which helps us sell those expensive houses. And although the banking industry certainly hurt us, it's a very powerful driver with regards to financial and business services. And those are high-income positions for us. Well above population growth, which I also referenced a little bit earlier. We have people coming to town without jobs because they think this is a place to find a job, and it is, but not quite as many as come into town are going to find those jobs for us going forward. Well above average population bodes well for expansion of healthcare, consumer industries, and housing. Good stuff. And lastly, Charlotte will outperform the state and the U.S. through 2017. Now, what economist would have the nerve to project what's happening in 2017? I don't know, but hey, somebody did, and good stuff. I think when national companies read all this stuff from Moody's, it puts us on the list as far as, I need to move my business there. I need to improve the situation. And we also have lots of interesting things as Charlotte tries to reconfigure its economy. Charlotte is an incredibly diversified economy, even though we were such a huge banking capital. But we're working on energy with Duke Energy, the largest energy company in the United States. We're working on cloud-based data up at the university. Lots of industries that we are trying to bring to town to kind of reconfigure us and change our position as to being only a banking capital. We also have the incredible thing happening out of the airport with the multimodal. Charlotte has historically been a transportation center with our two expressways crossing. And the intermodal connecting train, rail, and trucking is believed to be incredibly strong, particularly if we ever get the Panama Canal widened. You've been reading obnoxious things about that, but that widening of the canal is terribly important to our intermodal being able to do what it would hope to be. So again, great spot for us all to be. Regardless of what happens nationally, Charlotte will be better than the national position.